Let's see. Hey, we're live here too.
We are.
Hello, all. So much positive feedback from people from last week, us making that right turn and staying away from the current events.
Yeah, I've current
Once
events.
in a while, we gotta pull off that.
Current events are definitely something that.
Although it is like the
Yeah.
question I have for you is: do we know how to gracefully lose in this world today? Generally speaking, are there graceful losers anymore?
I think so. Well, it depends. It depends on what we're
Politics,
talking.
right?
Well, if we're talking politics, I don't think they're. Well, I feel like there probably are at the local level people you don't see at national notoriety, but again, I think it's as a politician, right? I mean, you got to define graceful losing though, or losing gracefully, because we may define it differently.
Good question. It's an important question too to define.
Yeah,
because
it really is.
I always thought there was an etiquette to sportsmanship.
Okay.
Throughout my years, and
Okay.
I think if anything, being driven by politics the last couple decades, it's kind of eroded a bit. There's
Etiquette in general has eroded.
True, but I think that excuse making for losing, sometimes being in denial of the actual loss, seems to be more prevalent today.
Oh, 100%. So I would look at, okay, so we're saying losing gracefully. I'm like admitting that you lost and it's your fault. Like owning the loss.
Owning the loss.
Good. I think that's really losing gracefully, right? As a politician, you own it. Like I was not the better candidate. My position on policies was not as good as the others. Or more people liked the other person. More people voted for them. I didn't work hard enough to get out the vote. But when you start blaming other people, like I was robbed, this person,
well, yeah, like there's always an excuse that's not you.
That's in general. That's in general in life. I always said that. Even when I was in corporate America, I said the biggest problem is lack of accountability. Like that's really it. I mean, no one holds himself to account anymore.
Yeah. Yes. And it's funny because it appears that we're quick to find a reason when things don't go according to plan that is never from within. There's always got to be external forces that has to be the cause of our either failure, or sometimes we're even too proud to admit it's an actual failure, are just not quite good enough in this particular circumstance. But it's not because of me. It's because of these other things that happened to me.
Correct.
Or to my cause. Right?
Yeah. Again, I think, I think that's immature thinking, right? Because I think if I go back to, Jack Canfield's book, the one I talk about all the time, like everything in your life it was 100% your fault. Because of the E plus R equals O formula, right? An event plus reaction equals an outcome. You always control one of the variables. So how you react to it or the event that occurred.
Yeah.
And I think people are always looking to point to someone else or something else as to why they didn't get the result they wanted.
Where does that come from? Like what? Because I think that's don't get me wrong. I think for as long as man's been on its earth, there's a portion of the population that work that way. But it seems like a significant amount of the population in today's world looks for external excuses when things don't go according to plan.
Correct. Because then they're not accountable for what happened. Like it really comes down to people don't want to be held to account.
So when did this, roughly speaking, like when did that shift happen, or how did it happen? How did that evolve? Because I think it's evolved.
I think it's human nature though. Think about lying is not being held to account, right? So lying is human nature from the beginning of time, right?
Yes.
So you think about that. I think now it's just gotten more exacerbated because there's more ways to point to someone else. There's more ways to blame others. I just think there's always been this lack of accountability, people not wanting to take the fall. I mean, think about the term fall guy. Like how old is that term?
No, asshole.
Finding someone else to blame for the crime you committed. Like that's the thing.
Yeah. And
I think it's more visible now.
It is more visible now.
Yeah.
And everything we do is got this perceived amplification in society and thus importance, when in reality, just so much of it, no one's really paying attention.
Right.
But we most of us don't believe it. we're that insignificant. So we have this hyped up amplitude
Yes.
of the circumstance.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this stuff too comes from, I think that it's human nature to blame and to not be accountable. So I think it's a sophisticated way of thinking and a sophisticated level of self-awareness when you start holding yourself to account for the things you do or the things you don't do. Like, if I'm not where I want to be in life, or I don't look the way I want to look, or weigh what I want to weigh, or have the money I want to have, that is my fault 100%. That means I either haven't figured out how to do it, I haven't put in the effort to do it, or I just said, fuck it, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And that's what people don't get. Like, it's truly on us, everything. We only can control our own actions and emotions, right? I can't control what you do, right? I can't. So if I say Eric made me mad and it's Eric's fault, I just gave you that power because I don't control what you do. But now I'm saying it's your fault. So I'm giving you the power over me. Like, that's what people need to understand. Like, accountability is taking your power back. Like, the moment I blame someone else for something, I've given them power over me because I'm saying they've controlled my outcome and my outlook on life.
1,000,000%. But it's, which, if you understand that concept, if someone understands that concept, it can shift the entire way they look at most scenarios, because the whole concept is personally empowering.
Absolutely.
It's just that I don't think that idea resonates with a lot of people. It's just easier to do the opposite.
It's a hard concept, because I read that concept when I was 27. It didn't really sink in until I hit 30. Like, it took me reading that, because I read that book every single year, The Success Principle. So I think the first time I read was 27.
There's the second one,
There's a lot of books. But that is really like a fundamental, like, it's a fundamental guidebook for me. So if you figure I read it every year for almost 20 years. Right. But it didn't really sink in until I read it like the third or fourth time.
Yeah.
And really, and then I'm like hit 30. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, like, no one's coming to save me. Right. No one's going to do it for me. Right. If I don't have something, that's on me. If I'm not where I want to be, that's on me. I've got to make the changes. I've got to do the work.
I don't remember the name. So he wrote that book, and then he came back with the next one. I think it's been a couple since, but the next one, and I just don't remember what it was titled. But I mentioned it only because there's case studies throughout the book, and getting through my first divorce and missing my kids when they were young. It was a great case study, and I remember distinctly reading this chapter in that book. It was the right piece of advice, the right piece of literature at the right time in my life. It's just there. I just look back at how that was so effective.
There's so many books like that. Like that's one of the books that it was for me, because I was 27 years old. I had Gabe when I was 24. So here I am. I'm in my late 20s. I have a 3-year-old son. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know how to be a man yet. Now I have a son that I'm responsible for. So, and I was trying to figure out how to be a lawyer. So I'm like, holy fuck, I don't like who's coming to save me, because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I have all this responsibility now on my head. Like, even when I wish I read the book a lot earlier, because I was in law school, like having Gabe, like, to bring him to law school, like, there was so much. But it's
a great story though.
It is, but then when I got to that point, I read that book, and like the first time it sat with me, and like the next year and the year after that, and it's like all of a sudden it just clicked. It's like, that's right. Like, no one's coming. Right. The cavalry's not coming to save me. Like, if I want something in this life, it's on me to figure out the way to do it. If I want to build something or have something or make something or be something, it's on me. No one's going to do the work for me. No one's going to give it to me. And for some reason, it just clicked, and I started looking at everything differently. I stopped blaming people. I stopped blaming things. I said, you know what? If I'm out of shape, that's because I'm a fat piece of shit. Like, I'm not doing the work. I'm being lazy. It's not anybody else's fault. No one's putting fucking taco in my mouth. I'm doing it. You know what I mean? Like, but it's simple things like that. But sometimes we have these, as humans, we have this distinct ability to find reason for the things we do and don't do that have negative consequences.
We do. When you say reason,
justification.
Yes. And at some point we become more and more comfortable living in that justification.
Absolutely right. 100%. And we've got to get past that. It's like, I hear so many people, not so much today, but like years ago, like people would just complain about their life. I'm like, okay, what are you doing to change it? Okay, nothing. Then stop complaining. You either accept where you are or do something to change it, because complaining does nothing. Right? It's your choice to change. Like if you're not healthy or you want to be, I'm just using health as the example. If you feel like shit and you want to be healthy, but you're not doing anything to change, stop complaining. Stop complaining. Like a friend of mine years ago, like not close friend, but like acquaintance, like bigger guy. He would always complain about, I can't lose weight. I said, okay, well, have you put down the beer on the weekends? Well, no, I have to have my beer on the weekends. I said, you have to? And it was like, so there was this diabolically opposed forces that were dictating his life, right? He was so mad. He wanted to get in shape, and he'd, work out during the week and then he'd just drink his face off on the weekends.
He was subservient to the things that were hurting him.
Right. And it's like, no, like you've given that beer or that alcohol power over you.
Too much power.
And that's the thing. And people, if you start looking at it that way, like, what am I giving power to?
Well, this will be funny, but when I say this, you've had experiences in your life where people have said this. It's like the conversation of losing weight or dieting or whatever, or eating plans come up, and invariably someone would ask me, what do you eat? What's your regimen? And I say it, and if it doesn't include pizza, or heaven forbid around these parts, it doesn't include Mancini's bread. Oh, I just can't live without my Mancini's bread. I get it. Don't get me wrong.
Delicious.
It's unbelievably delicious. But it's like we've given power to inanimate things to dominate our free will.
Yes, exactly.
Which is insane.
And that's the thing. Like, and that's what you got to come back to. We remember, like, it's free will. It's our choice. No one's sticking a piece of Mancini's bread down your throat. It's delicious. Don't get me wrong. I like pizza. I like burgers, but I also know what I'm trying to do. And so for me, like health is, I find balance, right? Like I'm not, I know I'm never going to be 170 pounds with 3% body fat. I'm 46 years old, right? I'm going to be 47. Like, it's too much effort. It's too much effort for me. Like I've made that choice. Like that's my free will. Like I know how to get like really lean. I don't want to do that. Like I like where I am. I'm good.
Yes.
And it's like, and I can kind of teeter on that. And it's the choices you make.
It is.
But some people complain like that. It'd be like me complaining like, I can't lose weight. I'm so fat. But yet I'm sitting here eating fucking Taco Bell every weekend. Like that's a choice that's diabolically opposed to what I'm trying to do.
Is it?
And Taco Bell
tacos are delicious. Are we in a culture of complaining though? Is our culture like and I've probably said this before, but it's one of the greatest quips that I ever heard like a musician say. It was Paul Stanley of Kiss. He said it numerous times, but I heard him say it in person. So I think he believes this so much. They asked him constantly over and over again, man, does it get old? Like, an hour before the show, you got to put all that stuff on and the makeup, and other people just grab their guitar around stage and they're, life's a lot easier for most other artists. And he goes, doesn't that get old, man? Don't you bitch about that? And he's like, man, he goes, that would be like getting what you wanted, like being elected. If you want to be president, you actually got there. And then all of a sudden, once you're there, you start complaining about having to wear a tie. I mean, if you're lucky to get what you want, shut up. That was the line he used. And it just, every time I heard him say this, it was like, why complain? You've been fortunate enough to have some things go your way, and that coupled with hard work has got you this apex.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Like when people ask me, like, don't you hate wearing suits every day? I said, no, I get to wear a suit when I want. Like it's where I've got to in life, right? I'm not at that point where, like, I get to be in meetings that require me to wear a suit. I get to be at a level in my professional career where a suit is almost expected. Like, I'm not going to complain about that. Like, no way. And Dave was going to keep getting my business for years to come because of that.
As you should. We're going to talk about that too.
Right. But I love that quote. Like, why complain once you get what you want? Like, once you're there,
you get to be president, and now you're complaining about wearing a tie. Like,
it makes no. That would be like me, like running in front of a big high. I hate all this shit. Like, I love it. Like, it's overwhelming at times. But I love it. Like, it's what I wanted. Like, I would never trade it for anything. Like, it's just, there's growing pains, and we're growing as a firm, and we're putting new things in place. But I would never complain about having to do that.
Right. But it's funny how it just shows you how deeply the concept of human complaining is embedded in our culture. It's something. It can find its way in, even like the most diligent. I mean, you're extremely dialed into everything you do.
Yeah.
But I guarantee, if I ask you an honest question, you got to fight against the element of
I'm
frustration.
human.
We all do.
I will still complain about certain things.
Absolutely.
But then I always try and take a step back. And again, I always say,
do.
What's the alternative?
Yep. 100%.
Like it's like, what's the alternative? Like, I can complain about this.
It's a devious thing.
It is, because it's a natural reaction we have. It's a natural instinct we have.
We've conditioned ourselves to act that way through things we see and experience and hearing other people do. It's
100%.
I mean, it's one of the worst things you can do in front of your children. It never gets spoken to because there's so many other things that, you don't want to do this or that, or, heaven forbid you drink or whatever. All kids watch everything, but if you are a constant complainer with everything that doesn't happen to go the right way, I think that can have a negative effect on children.
100%. Absolutely. I am always very cognizant about, my kids are around all the time, right? And I love my girls, and they'll hear me not necessarily complain, but like vent and just like work through problems like out loud. Like that's how I work through. I just talk about, like, I'm not complaining. It's just me. Like, I have to voice my thoughts. But I always come back to, and I make sure they know that, like, I love what I do. This is just part of the journey. Like, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly right.
And I think if you let your kids know that like, it's hard, but you love the hard, because I do. Like, I love the hard, and that sounds that sounds stupid, but it's so true. If it was easy, I would be bored. I would hate it. Like, I like the difficulty. I like the challenge of it. So. I think kids are very impressionable, and I think if kids come up in a home where they hear honest, authentic, not complaining, but just discussing of issues, because I think there's two ways people approach it, right? They try and like shield their kids from everything. They want it to be rainbows and unicorns and fucking sunshine. That's not how the world works. The other people just get their kids involved in everything. And it's like, that's not good either. There's got to be a line you draw somewhere, right? Kids have to be kids and be kept out of certain adult conversations, adult things, and brought into others. And I think if you just give kids an honest, open view into the world, and you let them know that, there's a way of looking at the world that is positive, that is impactful, and that it isn't all negative. I think the more you do that and the more they see, they're not going to ever listen to what you say. They're going to do what you do. And I've learned that. So I just say, I can tell them all the shit I want to tell them, but they're only going to do what I do. So I just try to remain positive, stay positive, say positive things. Have those days where it's a bad day.
Certainly.
Like, if I have that, like, in the car in the morning, like, I'm driving to school, Ellie will say, like, you good? I'm like, yeah. Like, literally, I was just venting last night. I'm like, I'm good. And I always come back to, I'm like, Ellie, I love what I do. Like, I love the fact that I get to work with amazing people every day.
Response, yeah.
And it's true. And I said, there are some days where I'm dealing with client issues or strategy issues or just things that are just going to frustrate me. I'm going to vent that. I said, 100%. But I get to do what I love and work with people that I highly respect and love every single day.
Right.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right.
And that just shows her that, yes, it's not perfect. There's going to be problems on the way.
Yeah.
But it's still part of the journey that I love.
Yeah. And to dovetail off of that too, like it's so important, I think, today to do appropriate proportionality to events with children. Like, if you flew off the handle every time something from someone taking your park, if you react the same, hypothetically react the same way to some guy cutting off and taking your parking space in the parking lot, and that reaction in anger is the same as losing one of the biggest clients you have. Yeah. The proportionality gets lost on the kids.
Correct. Yeah.
And you don't think they pick up on that stuff, but they do.
Oh, they do.
They absolutely do.
I learned not to react in cars. Gabe was 2 years old. I remember someone cut me off on a highway, and I was like, fucking go. And he's 2-year-old in the back seat, and I hear him go, fucking go. And I'm like, oh. Well, I'm never going to say that in the car again. So I just, because again, like I used to get angry about certain things, like road rage when I was younger, and it's just like, now you kind of just look at it. Like, I always say, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. And there was an instance that happened, this was years ago, but like this guy like just but he like getting on the Carnegie exit, and he was going so slow, and I wanted to kill. I was so mad because it was like I was trying to get by him. He just pulled up to a stop, and I got out and I like drove next to him. I was literally ready to flip him off, and it was this old man. And it's just like I felt like the biggest piece of shit in that moment. I'm like, I'll never do that again.
I've had a moment like that, or a couple.
Like, I'll never do it again. Never do it again. I'm like, I don't know. I'm never gonna act that way again.
I just moved back to Coriopolis, Natalie, and I just bought the house, and I was coming down Main Street, a very steep street in my hometown. Yeah. I come flying down Main Street. Now I know the speed limit's 15 miles an hour, but I come flying down there, and it's the summertime, and I hear this mother in her yard scream at me.
Yeah.
And I put on my brakes, stopped almost deadpan on this hill, throw it in reverse, and I got to back up, and I knew Natalie was looking at me like, "Are you crazy? You were speeding. Don't start a fight with this woman." And I had no intention of starting a fight with this woman. I backed up, and I pulled up to her, and this woman was anticipating me going off, and it's going to be this big confrontation. Yeah. I said, "Excuse me, ma'am." I said, "You are absolutely right. I was going way faster than I should have, and unfortunately I do that too often. So thank you for bringing it to my attention, and I want to apologize."
Yeah.
And you could just see this. My wife's mind. My wife thought she was putting the combat. She was putting the suit of armor on because she knew it was coming. But I had realized that, my first inclination was to stop. But by the time I hit the brake, I realized, wait a second, this lady's completely in the right. Why don't I just go apologize to her?
Yeah.
Do something out of character, Eric.
Right.
Take that anger and let's. But here I'm talking about it. And I remember that it was a little indelible mark in my life where I'm back, and it changed. And every time I would go by them from that moment on, we'd always wave. I waved to her husband. Yep. I had a new friend because I took the humble approach to it because I was wrong anyways.
And that's right. that is what's so interesting. Like, and I think, you get to that point in life, you start realizing that, a simple, like a simple apology in a situation where you get so mad, like, can change the complete outlook of your life. Like, not just that moment, but think about that moment. Like, you were pissed
12 years ago.
You backed up and apologized, and that person became someone you became an acquaintance with.
Yep.
Like, little things like that. Like like the butterfly effect. Like, those little things. And I think we also stop and think.
It feel so good, and it made my wife at that time. We were, going together a couple of years. It gave her another glimpse of who I was as a person, someone that I could be proud of in that moment. She's not seeing my worst. Right. She's seeing it.
But to that point, like, I think they have to see her worst.
Oh, she's seen my worst.
but think about that. Like, that brings up a good point. So I think that is a part with relationships, right? I think that too many people try and hide their worst. Like, there's a good and evil in all of us, right? Like, there's the shadow self, and we talk about this ad nauseum, but it's like so many people hide that from their significant other or just people in their life in general.
It was definitely.
And it's like, that's really when you integrate that into your life and you fully understand it, like, it makes it so easy. I think those significant others have to see that side of us.
I think so too.
They have to know we're vulnerable.
Yes. And it comes down to, how do you handle those moments of stressors? Like, how do you handle them? And that's really kind of the difference. I mean, and you can tie it, again, I've been quoting Jim Rohn my whole life, but he had something that kind of went like, the way a man handles his stress, and obviously it's not gender specific, but the way a man is a direct reflection of his developing character.
I completely agree with that. I've never heard that quote from him, but I completely agree. The way I handle stress today is so different than it was 5 years ago. Because again, like, you develop and you start looking at the world differently, and you start understanding what really matters, what doesn't matter, and the way to handle things. Like, I don't ever feel stressed. I feel overwhelmed, because I equate stress to negative energy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever feel negative energy from what I do. Like, every once in a while I have a moment. It's just overwhelmed, and you just learn to deal with the overwhelm.
Right. And usually that's you can break that down into more of a procedural thing and work through it. It's just
I'd need an elephant one bite at a time.
Right. And we often ignore that procedural thing because sometimes the guttural outburst just temporarily feels better at that moment. Accomplishes nothing.
Yeah.
But at that moment, it feels better.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where like you just get you kind of look at everything in your face and you're just like, and you freeze. You're like, oh shit, like what do I do? I mean, there's moments I have that. Like I have like okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. And I just take a step back and say, what's the next thing I need to do? Like what's the next step? Like Jasmine's been out for 2 days. I'm used to having a folder in the morning that has all the things I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do today. Like no one's telling me what I'm supposed to do, but I had to I took a step back. I'm like, wait, I can do this. I can do this. Like, what are the things I need to do?
What did you do before she was around?
It was funny because I met Emma yesterday at Starbucks to talk about some books and just have a conversation. I was writing in a notebook, like when she got there, and I'm like, I don't have a folder today. I need to write down things I need to do. It was just, but it's like, but that's kind of the process, right? You have to like, when there's so many things on your plate, right? You have to just say, what's the next thing that I have to do? And don't like, I try and stop thinking about the 10 things that come after that.
Yeah.
Focus on the next bite, then the next bite. And I think that takes away that overwhelm.
Yeah.
You just break it down procedurally, like you said.
So last we were talking a little bit about a lot of things. We were talking about like wins and losses and enjoying the wins, celebrating the wins appropriately, using that joy that comes from the wins to propel you to the next thing, keep you on course and all that. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of understanding that a lot of people in society may never get wins, or if they do, it's so infrequent that they don't even recognize it.
Oh, that's a good question.
You know, sometimes it can be an economically disadvantaged circumstance. It could be just they're ignorant in the process of they've never learned how to truly enjoy moments in their life. Could be how they were raised, could be the circumstances they found themselves in. But I think if you don't really, what about the people who just in their mind don't get the wins?
So,
and what is their frame of reference for life?
Well, so let's break that language apart. You said in their mind. So that means that it may be a win on paper, but to them, perspective wise, it may not be a win.
They're choosing not to acknowledge.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think it comes down to there's a lot of factors that can come into that, like how you were brought up, your environment, right? Like, what matters to you
matters to your parents.
Yeah, I mean, because think about like what you may consider something that as a win, like we'll go back to health again, right? Your win in fitness may be completely different than my win in fitness, right? So I may look at something like that's fucking awesome. You may not even think about it if it happens, and vice versa, right? Like you go out and walk a zillion miles a night, and like those aren't those aren't wins.
450. You bench 450, and I'm like, that's the furthest thing for me.
I don't bench 450.
Whatever he benches, but I mean, like that's so far out of my
realm, but like I
I
couldn't do what you do.
Yeah, it's vice versa.
It's just like it's nothing. It's not a win. Like, but I went out in the middle of the fucking night. But I'm saying, if I went out in the middle of the fucking night and walked for a zillion hours,
it's not the middle of the night. It's not after midnight.
I was walking at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's late. Yeah, it's late.
2 hours.
It's late. Yeah. It's late.
I'm getting up in 2 hours from there.
True. That is true.
That would be a win to me. Like, because that's something I don't typically do.
Yeah.
And again, I think it always comes down to context, right?
It is perspective.
And I think there are people out there that I think just have never experienced
or let themselves experience.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking of myself. Have I been like that in some instances? Like not let myself experience things?
I think so. I think we probably all at some point in time.
Yeah, like I know that I don't always stop and smell the roses because I'm just too forward moving all the time.
And because the next question is, what's the next thing?
Well, yeah, and again, that's a benefit to me, but also a detriment, because sometimes I think
that's the entrepreneurial brain, pal.
Yeah, and it's not even that. I think it is that, but I think it's just I get caught up in things. I get caught up in myself, right? Like I always say, like I don't do anything special. Like I don't have any special talents. I just work. Like I never think that I'm special or unique.
Right.
So when I do things, I'm like, anybody can do this. So why would I celebrate?
I can relate that. Yeah. Okay. That's a very interesting point.
That's
an interesting
point. If you're asking that question, if I look at my perspective, that's what it is. I don't think I do anything special or unique. And I'm like, I just think anybody can do what I do. Like it's just, so I don't think to celebrate it because I'm like, I'm not unique in any way.
Yeah, I can see that level of humility can cause.
I don't think it's humility. I think it's just. I just think
I think it's humility. I think if you are confident that what you are doing is in your world is the best, and you expect that out of you, but you also don't look at it that it's superior than anybody else. So you're looking at it, if I can do it, anybody can do it, but I'm going to do it really good because that's what I'm concentrating on. That's humility. That's humility.
Yeah,
damn straight.
But I also think like if you like, people always know what they're good at, right? Like they know what they're like. If you ask
do they?
I think if you ask a lot of people, they can point to certain things they're good at, right? If you ask me what I'm good at, I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm good at. Like if you pushed me to answer that question,
I have never pushed you.
Like, what are you good at?
Yeah, what are you good at?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm good at, dude. I don't. I really don't. If I sit here and think, I'm like,
I can answer some of that for you.
But that's how I think. Like I don't know what I'm good at.
Maybe it's interesting, the answer, in that if other people can answer that question for you, maybe you're doing something right.
I don't know. I don't know. You know? I mean, I struggle with that question all the time. Like when I talk to Mike every week, I'm like, I don't know what I'm good at. Like I don't. Like I just I'm always willing to outwork people, but that's not a talent. That's just pure effort and just determination.
That's your definition of good. We can get lost in the semantics of
right. But I'm just saying, like, I just think like I don't have any talents. Like I'm not, I'm just me. I think that's where I get caught up, and that's probably why I don't look at the world certain ways. I don't celebrate certain things about myself.
Do you have? So when no matter what I've done and accomplished, I've always felt like it really wasn't anything special because I didn't think it required a significant amount of college, or it never really required a lot of aptitude. It was just having that rockhead mentality to figure out the system and go exploit the system. Exploit's the wrong word probably, but go really work that system.
Yeah.
Whether it was guitars and the internet back in the day, or whether it was real estate, just understanding it and then just being diligent, going and working it. But I'd always would say, there's just nothing special about what I'm doing. It's just that I get up and I'm enthused to do it every day.
Yeah.
The repetitive nature, if you do it long enough and consistently enough, you're going to be a success. That's the American way, man. It's a beautiful thing.
I agree with that. It's a 10,000 hour rule, right? You 100%. You put in the time. It's consistency over intensity. Like just doing the work every day. Doesn't have to be intense work, but it's just got to be consistent work.
But there's more intrinsic beauty to that I think when you're in the weeds and mixed up with it, you can't see it. Like you see, I don't know what I'm good at. Well, because to you, practicing a law and running this firm is what you do day in, day out. But when you step back from that and you look at that and then watch the success, there's like intrinsic beauty in that. Running that guitar business, designing stuff, being a great realtor and having people happy and satisfied. When you step back from that level of success, whatever the markers are that you tie to it, there's an intrinsic beauty in that process. And you are good at that if you make that process go. By definition.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, and I get it. And I think the beauty is always in the process. I think you got to fall.
It should be.
And I think to be successful, it has to be, because the goal will always move. The goal will always change.
If you're doing it right.
But if you fall in love with the process, like I love the process. Like I love getting up every day, going to the office and seeing what shit's going to be thrown at me. but I mean, not shit in a bad way, but just like stuff like, clients and phone calls and text messages, like literally I get a shit ton of phone calls, text messages, and emails every day, like a ton. And it's like, and I get to sort it all out. Like, I love that. Like, I love, like, that's the process I enjoy, like figuring out the marketing, figuring out how to develop business, figuring out how to structure things and run the firm. Like, but to me, that's nothing special. It's just engaging. I've just gotten to a point in life where I'm very engaged in the game.
Yes.
I'm on the field playing every day. I'm not sitting on the sidelines. I'm not watching from the bleachers. I'm literally in the game, taking the bumps and bruises every day.
So reverse that. So the people that are struggling to figure things out in life or get their game going, so to speak, in their world, it's possible that they're not seeing any wins. They're not encountering, thus they're not knowing how to take those moments of joy or finding those moments of joy. It really is an interesting process. Like we talk often on here about being able to put ourselves, or at least try to put ourselves in other people's scenarios, right? But not everybody is able to recognize or enjoy the little wins in life. I believe that to be true.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time doing that. I know that for a fact. Like the little stuff, I have a very hard time doing that. That's just me. That's how I'm wired. And I'm not saying it's right. That's just, I just know that's how I'm wired. But
I have someone who enjoys everything as a win.
Yeah, and again, I think there are, I have friends that look at the.
It's Friday.
Well, yeah, and it's. That is right, but I think it's all different lifestyles, right? It's different, and that's why I say, like, I think in life, if anybody's struggling in life, I think just accepting and saying to yourself, I'm just going to engage in life. And when I say engage, that means just embrace the present, embrace what you're in, whether it's good or bad, it's the awesomest or the shittiest. Embrace it and engage in it. Then it makes life start looking different.
It does.
And then you start seeing things. You start seeing those wins because you're just on the field being engaged.
You'll start having little moments along the way.
I think a lot of people don't want to get fully engaged in life. And so they're constantly looking for something, but they're not in it enough to see it.
Yeah, it's a great point. I also think that we're looking to define what great moments are, and then when our expectation is this has to happen, and I can call that a great moment, and as opposed to letting them just evolve and come, and even if they're small, the magnitude small, they build. You start stacking those things.
Yeah, and it's a stackable ones, because even after when we were talking last week about it, I started thinking like the little things, like, and again, like. I do look at certain little wins in life, and stack them together. But to me, it becomes my framework, right? Like
certainly,
if I get up at the same time every day, like, that's a win to me in my mind. Like those are the little things I look at. It's like, okay, like I won that first part of the day. Like I got my work and I won that first part of the day. I did these things. I won that. And if I skip something, like, that's a loss. Like, why did I skip it? Like, why did I not do that today? Like, was I tired? Did I need more rest? Like, what was the issue? So I'm always like analyzing things. So I guess I do stack up little wins. I guess I don't call them wins. I just call them like just the habits. So I look at when I engage in the habits I put in place, like those are wins to me. Because if I stack all my habits every day, like that day's a win.
Yeah, your reference to them is just different. But as someone who's struggling to get their life started, I would say, like you mentioned earlier, just start like the idea about show up,
make your bed.
Yeah, show up to life, and then start looking at these little moments of positivity, and they will be right in your face.
Yeah,
take a moment, ingest them, and then start stacking up, and it will build. It'll change your state as you move through the day, move through the week, move through the month.
There's that book that I think the Navy SEAL guy wrote, it's called "Make Your Bed."
Yes,
and he literally
it's general, right?
Yeah, and he literally talked about that. Like, start the day and the point is, like, start the day with a win. Like, make your bed. I'm like, yeah, like, and figuring out what that win is, right? Like, to me, my morning win is engaging in my morning routine. Like, I have 5 or 6 things I do every single morning, and if I don't do them, that's not a win. But if I do those things,
right,
my day's set up right.
Exactly.
Like
right.
That's kind of how, like, I think if people are kind of struggling where they are, find one thing to do. Like, one thing that if you start your day, like, there's a book that I just read. I think it's called Habit Stacking, or it's some tiny habits or tiny wins. I can't remember the name.
Exactly the book you're talking about. I've not read it, but I know the book.
It's so good because it breaks down habits even further. And it was, and again, it was talking about a woman that was trying to start eating healthy. She couldn't do it. And it said, start for a week by just coming into your kitchen and putting the pan you make oatmeal on the stove. Do nothing else. Don't turn it on. Don't put water. Don't do anything. Just start with that habit. And she did it. And the same thing is like, okay, next week, add the water, turn it on. And then it just builds that habit. And the guy was talking about, the person who wrote it, he's like flossing teeth. He had a hard time flossing his teeth. He said, all he told himself was I have to floss one tooth. Like, he's dark because he didn't have the habit. He's like, he fucking hated flossing his teeth. He's like, I'm just going to tell myself, if I floss one tooth, that's a win. you start stacking those little things, and I'm like, huh.
Well, if he doesn't start flossing, he's only going to have one tooth.
but the point is, like, we look at habits sometimes, and they get over doing that one thing is overwhelming.
No question.
Like, no one likes flossing.
Well, I think in general is if you talk to somebody who feels demotivated and just feels like they're in a rut, if you start unpacking that, you know, it's everything feels overwhelming to them. They don't know where to start. They see all these things that need fixed, and that is so overwhelming. They don't know which one to tackle first. Yeah, that's a very common thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I find myself doing that sometimes.
That's human nature.
Look, I walk in the house, I'm like, there's a lot of shit on my desk. I don't know what to do. Like, I'll just say, start at the corner. I'll literally start at one corner and just start looking at the papers and putting them away and organizing them.
As a species, we are really not inclined to order, are we? Entropy runs deep in the human experience. We don't like to admit that, but you know, it's like,
that's a good question. I know a lot of people that have order, and I have in certain aspects of my life, I have order. Like, I'm probably the enigma or an anomaly, because if you walk into my office, you'll be like, what the like, it looks like some days a bomb went off on my desk. I just have shit everywhere. I know where everything is, organized chaos. But then you go in my closet at home, which I just got redone. It's like all my suits, all my suits are there, all my shirts, all my shoes. It's like very organized. People are like, you make no sense to me. Because it's
that's a little odd.
It is, because I mean, because even like my wife, like, I'll have like on our island in the kitchen, like, I'll have all my shit on the island, like in disarray. I know it's all mine in a pile, and I know it's there. Then I'll go upstairs to my bedroom, and like my watches will be in my watch box, my colognes will be lined up, my ties are on my tie rack, my suits are here. But then like everywhere else, it's like there are certain things in my head that I keep organized, and other things don't matter to me. And I think there is a level of order humans like, but I do truly think we err on the side of chaos.
I think we do too. And
I can live in chaos comfortably. I can never be comfortably full of order, because it would drive me crazy if everything was orderly.
Well, this is such a deep conversation, but it could be that as time has marched on here, as centuries have marched on, that personal possessions or just things around each human has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. There's just more stuff. Yeah. Talk about having a house with kids. Like, I have so much shit in my house. You just accumulate stuff. Even the clothes we wear. I mean, by the time you get, as a guy that leaves the house, there's belts and there's everything. There's all these little trinkets that we adorn ourselves with. That, 500 years ago, they wore a robe.
I know. And I try and go through. If I haven't worn it in a year, I'm going to get rid of it. Then I'm always like, I'm probably going to wear it this year. Like, I'll have those moments, because they're like, I usually purge like every spring. But there's always those couple things.
So difficult. I know.
I didn't wear it all year, but I feel like this is going to be the year that I wear it.
Yeah, and years go by and you never wear that thing, but you really like it. Right. But you just don't like it enough to actually put it on you. But you look at it like, damn, that's a nice sweater, man.
There's like 3 or 4 things I'm thinking about my closet.
When the weather gets cooler out, I'll probably wear that.
Yes. I'm definitely going to be 190 pounds again. I'm definitely going to squeeze into these fucking jeans again. But no, they're just there. They're my motivation jeans.
2 things. So my wife, like chaos and order. So my wife will tell you, I can run through a house and, destroy everything in my path and leave this, but other little moments in my life, like there's nothing in my car. My car is like nothing. There's nothing. I don't want anything around me except this plate that my wife gave me during Thanksgiving. I had to return to my mother.
Okay.
Cleaned it and put it in a little bag. It sat on my back seat since November. Yeah. I have not given it back to my mother, who only lives 4 blocks away, which I see her multiple times per week, but I just haven't taken it out of my car and handed it to my mom. This is the kind of insanity that I live in.
I'm the same way. I have a desk light on my back seat that I've been bringing to my office for like 3 weeks. It's just sitting on my back seat.
Not just me.
No, it's me. It's me.
Yeah. I just think that overall we get used to a certain amount of chaos and it becomes normal. Yeah. And to carry that conversation further, we're going to find out here in the next coming years how much mental and organizational chaos we can handle in our lives and where the breaking point is, because I think we're being tested.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's why like I'm okay. I feel like I'm okay because I'm like I love chaos. Like I feel like I operate very well in chaos. I stay calm in chaos. Sometimes uncomfortably calm, where I make myself like, why am I so calm right now? Like I feel like I should be more anxious or worried about something.
No, I get it.
I just feel like I can live in chaos very well.
I wouldn't want that.
It's not that I want it. It's not that I seek. I mean, well, sometimes I do seek chaos. Like I always say, if things are going too easy, I just want to throw a bomb in the middle of the room. Just I need something to fix.
Yeah, that's true. There's a little bit of that, I think, in my human experience too, where I've been told this by people that when things in past periods of my life were rolling along swimmingly, I've been told multiple times, like, hey man, it's going amazingly well. It's working on all these different fronts. Why do you keep pushing it to try to do something different? Or is it in the essence that you want it to be better? Or is that just the guise that you want to blow it up and build it again? And it's a really interesting question.
It's a good question.
It's the question I didn't want to answer at one time because it was really difficult to admit. I think I like the creation process better than running the well-oiled machine. I didn't want to admit that back then, right?
I understand.
But I think there was a lot of that. If I wasn't starting at that organic nature and creating it and getting it sprouted, because that's where the joy was.
Yeah. The joy is in the growth and in the growing of the thing.
In the creation of it, for me, it was definitely.
It's the same here. And that's why I think, if you're that way, you tend to push the envelope, right? Because there's really, like, I look at, like, there's no limit unless it's the limit I put on myself.
100%.
So I think if you just keep pushing past your limits, you don't know your limits until you test them. Like you don't know what you can handle until you push up against it.
Yes.
And I've always looked at my career, like I get to these, I know myself so well that every 4 to 6 months, I get to my red line, I say. And then somehow I find a way to push through it and expand the red line. I hit the wall. Like I will speed into that fucking wall and crash for like a day. I'm like, I hit my red line, I'm done. And
it's funny because I don't know if you've heard this from people, but when they look at you and witness you doing this, those that are close to you, it was said to me, well, you build it and it's working. And you've gotten what everybody wants. It's a well-oiled machine. You've built it. You've done it. Now all you have to do is maintain it and just watch steady growth. You should be happy with that. I can't tell you how many times I was told to me.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And I was very grateful for like the kind words.
Yes.
But it really wasn't there was no consternation between me and the party saying this to me. But I was unsettled because it just didn't their words didn't resonate with me. It was about throwing a little A-bomb in the middle of it, blowing it up, and then rebuilding it and letting it watch it get sprout again. That was the joy component. Yeah, it shouldn't have entirely been the joy component, but
I agree.
It kind of was for me.
No, and I can understand that, and I that resonates with me because it's not that I want to blow up everything, but I always say I'm blissfully dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Like I love my life. I love what I get to do. I love the people that I get to work with every single day, but I'm unsatisfied.
Right.
Because I'm nowhere close to where I want to be.
Have you ever felt in your career, at any point in your career, have you had moments where you've looked at decisions you've made and have you felt selfish?
Selfish? Since I've been running the firm, no, absolutely. I feel like, and maybe people think differently, I feel like I'm a very selfless person when it comes to leading the firm. Like I will always take care of the employees over myself.
What about when you were younger?
I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of an instance where I did something selfish. Like I don't know that I've ever been put in a position in my career where I had to choose myself over something else.
Step out of your career, just in your life in general. Like, have you decisions you've made in your personal life with friends, family,
decisions. Or yes, I've made plenty of selfish decisions. When I was younger, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to look at the bigger picture and be selfless and try and serve other people. Am I perfect? Farthest thing from it. Yeah. I think when we're young, we're egocentric. Yes. We look at it from our perspective. So we're only doing things that benefit us.
Very much.
So. That is selfish in and of itself, right?
Can be.
Like just looking at like with like when I was younger and like Laura and I were dating or like married, like I would only want to do the things I wanted to do. Like that was selfish, right? Like that was, I didn't want to do the things she wanted to do. I mean, that's boring. I don't want to do that. I don't want to eat there. I don't like that place. Like that's selfish. Like I could have tried. It was just, I think as you get older, you learn to collaborate with one another.
Yeah. Yeah. I look back at relationships that I burned. It could be a male, female, or just even friendships and things early on in my life, and in big, you know, at that point, very global decisions in my life that were, a lot of them were based upon almost exclusively at times of what was going to be best for me. And I look back and as you get older and you reflect on things, you feel, you know, I felt personally, and in many instances, you know, you feel bad because like, wow, there was a missed opportunity there. If I had just been able to see a little straighter, a little clear, I wouldn't have hurt these 4 people, or this person's life might have looked at, my kid's life might have been a little different. I mean, you don't want to live in regret, but you know, there's elements of, I can personally speak, there's elements of selfishness that drove my decisions earlier in my life that, you know, some of them might not have aged well. And it's, I hate to say that, but I mean, I wonder, like, that's why I asked the question. Like,
I'm thinking about it now. There's an instance I know that when I was in it, I felt very selfish, but looking back, it was the decision I had to make. Corporate America.
Yeah.
Like when I look at it, like,
yep.
I was a primary breadwinner. I held the benefits, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm done.
Yeah.
And Laura didn't question it, nothing. It was just like that to me. Like, look, when I was in that moment,
I bet,
and didn't have it figured out, and was like, where's the money going to come from? Like, where am I going to get the clients from? Like, well, we don't have benefits now. Like, what? I'm like, that was the most selfish decision I could have made. Like, I just thought about myself and my own happiness. Like, I should have sacrificed being miserable in a job to make sure my family was taken care of. Looking at it, but looking at it now, though, it's like, that's where the universe pushed me. It pushed me to make that decision, because if I didn't make that decision, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have the people around me that I do.
Like
but in that moment, I felt this like wave of like, and it wasn't a long period of time, but it was this period of like, what did I do? Like, that was the most selfish thing I could have done as a man. Like, I just put my entire family at risk by walking away from a multiple 6-figure job that benefits, to literally say, I'm just going to fucking figure it out.
Yeah. I got that. I got that. And the irony with me is I don't have one, and I never had one element of regret, or I've never even, I realized it was a selfish decision, but it was the right decision. Yeah. And I always knew it was the right decision. My waffling on decisions were always on the personal side. Like, was that a purely selfish decision? And did I hurt these people because I wanted this in my life, or my perception of what my life was going to be like was going to be this way if I made this decision, and that's what motivated me to do it. I'm sure that's pretty common with most people, and as you get older, you look back. But I think when you're younger, you tend to be more self-centric. It's a nice way of saying selfish. But.
No, I agree. I think we don't have the perspective we need at that point in time.
Right.
Because we have a very limited viewpoint of the world. Like when I was younger, like I had and I think I was like, having Gabe at such a young age, I think changed me as a man, because it made me be selfless. Like, had I not had Gabe at 24, I would have probably been a selfish prick into my mid-30s. But having Gabe at 24 made me realize I was living my life for someone else now. Like, I was responsible for this little person who's now bigger than me. Yeah. And that made me learn to be selfless. Because I'm sure I was I'm a Leo. I'm sure I was selfish or pride, like had those traits. But that moment you have him, it's like, I have to like figure life out for him, not for myself.
For him. 100%.
And it made me be a lot less selfish and a lot more selfless.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how we, do we actually evolve, or is it just the process of life? Does age either wear you out and you're too tired and you just kind of have a more easygoing way about us as we get older, or do we have the ability through wisdom to look back at prior decisions and reanalyze them and recognize what was a productive decision and what wasn't, or what may have been very self-centric? It's funny.
I think if you choose to do that, you can. I think some people just don't want to look back.
Yeah, it's not always pleasurable, but I think it's healthy.
I 100% agree. But I think about a lot of people our age, well, my age, maybe your age. It's way older than me.
I'll go ask them now the rest of the time if they're having the same conversations I am.
Go bust yourself in a nursing home and see if they have the same conversation. But I think there are a lot of people I know that are my age that never look back and analyze their decisions. They're just like, I'm here, I'm good. Like,
or else they might be in their
they don't
quiet
vocalize.
moments.
Yeah, they don't vocalize it or discuss it.
In their moments of quiet desperation, they might be.
Yeah, age is a funny thing. Like I'm starting to realize that. I'm like, I'm almost 50. Like I'm literally 3 years away from 50, which that's a big fucking number. Plus I'm surrounded by younger people in my office who I'm like, I feel like I'm old enough to be all your fucking dads.
Yeah, me and Mike are probably the oldest people you hang around.
Probably, yes, definitely.
And by the way, Mike is older than I. Mike Schreck's older.
Yes,
but just for the record.
But it puts age in the forefront, and it's like, one, it makes you realize that there is an end to all of this, right? It does come to an end at some point in time, but it also makes me appreciate the youth I still have.
Certainly,
like being around younger people, certainly makes me appreciate like how young I feel.
Yeah, and you create, this is probably a little, I don't know, either hokey or a little contrived, but I mean, you really do create your own youth.
100% you do.
It's 100%. Self-created, and that's, and I try to live my life that way, and have since we started this podcast 5 years ago. I want health and vitality, and I want dynamic conversations. I want to live a younger, more dynamic life as I age.
Think about the Golden Girls, right? Like think about that TV show. They were in their early 50s, I think. Know. And like I remember as a kid thinking like 47, you're basically dead. Like I remember as a kid thinking like 47 so old, but like now like I look at myself in the mirror and I know I look older, but I still see that 21-year-old. I still think like him. I still act like him.
There is something to be said by surrounding yourself with people. And it isn't always just age, but people that really live a dynamic way,
vibrantly
in a way that you want to live, right? And that circle, we talk about the circle of things so often important on here, but if I let's say I did the opposite. Let's say I'm 58, so let's say I went up 10 years, and I'm hanging around people in their late 60s, as opposed to hanging around people 10 years younger and more. My whole life experience from those two groups, totally different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally different.
100%. I mean, yeah, I mean, I completely, and again, your circle matters. Like I never look at you as 58. Like I always say, like you're my age. I don't even the people in my office, like I know they're all younger than me, but I never walk around thinking like, oh my God, until they remind me how much older I am than all of them. But I don't ever look at them like I'm like way older than all of you. Like I just look like we're all kind of equal. Yeah. Until they remind me that, oh, my dad's your age, my mom's your age. I'm like, well, fuck you. Like that's bullshit. But I think it really is. It's your outlook on life.
Yeah, you create your own youth.
You do. And I think people need to understand that. Like, you don't have to age.
No,
you really don't. It's your choice to age.
No, it's so much, and there's I realize just so much you can do on the physical side, but there's a lot of things you can do. You can fight it. I'm trying to fight it as best I can, but yeah, you do create your own youth, and I think that concept is lost on a lot of folks.
Well, I do, because I think a lot of people like our age, right? They like their things. They like to have their beer on the weekends. They like to, do their, go out and do these things. It's like they're not realizing, like, yes, when we were in our 20s, I could drink beer and alcohol. It didn't really impact me. Like now it impacts me like 10 times. Yeah,
so you make different choices now. That's all.
It's like, but some people won't give up that. They still think because they still feel young. They still treat their body the same way they did when they were 21, but our bodies actually do age, and we can't do or process things like I know right now, if I drink 3 beers, I will feel like shit for a day and a half. I don't want to feel like shit. So I choose not to do that. Every once in a while I will, but I won't do it like every week. There's no benefit for me. I
just had this conversation with my wife. We had a party for my grandson, his 2nd birthday party this weekend, and I did something I never do. I mean, first off, there was all this pizza. I just must have gorged on like 6 pieces of pizza.
You ate 6 pieces of pizza?
But that isn't even the worst of it. Okay. The worst of it was there was all these cupcakes. And I kind of estimate that I may have had 8 or 10 of them over the course of like an evening.
You ate 10 cupcakes?
I think so. So for the last 3 days, I have felt so bad.
I mean, if you ate 6 pieces of pizza and 8 cupcakes in a day, I would have fucking have diabetes.
That's what I'm saying. So, it's funny. It puts you off your game. So diet in general, if you have a strict diet, you will get off your, and alcohol, I'm assuming same damn thing. You can fall off the wagon.
Well, I think as you get older too, you become very cognizant to how your body operates. So
if you're paying attention,
if you pay attention, you can
for sure.
Like I know like what I can eat and what I can't eat and what'll fuck me up and what won't fuck me up. And I know that like
10 cupcakes will do some damage.
10 cupcakes will do damage. Like if you put peanut butter in my house, I'm gonna eat probably half the jar because I can't stop. Like peanut butter is my one thing I can't. So I try not to buy it because I will eat an entire jar and not even realize it. So you just got to be cognizant. And I think as people get older,
so much better for you.
I get that. I actually get this
so
new
much
thing.
better.
It's cashew, almond, flax, and something else butter.
Oh, right on. You like it?
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. The only thing I don't like about it has the flax seeds in it. They're not all crushed up. And sometimes they get like stuck in your teeth.
Yeah,
which is bullshit. But
well, there you go. See, 2 weeks in a row, no current events. But I think next week we'll have what I think tonight's Super Tuesday. Is tonight Super Tuesday or is it next week? Tonight, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man.
We just crossed the 1 hour threshold. This is a long show for us.
That's what's happening. That's why my live stopped.
Wow, there you go.
I'm learning things.
We never got past an hour.
No, it was good.
But we did tonight.
Yeah, good show.
But I think I do hope to wrap us up. I do hope that is it Governor Haley or is it Ambassador Haley?
Yeah, Ambassador.
I think at some point
she's got to call
for the moderate conservative movement in this country. I do hope that she does the right thing and tries not to burn it all down.
Agreed, man.
We will see. All right, friends. Thanks for hanging in. Thanks for all the feedback.
Yes.
See, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Little current events. We'll talk to you soon. Yes. See you next week.
See ya.